Okay, we're here with Steve Wraith at the Gateshead Hilton Hotel ahead of the Resurrection show on the 29th. Steve, what are your thoughts on the fights at
coming
Gateshead?
up? Yeah, I mean Gateshead is going to be a great show, as you know, as Rainton Meadows will be as well with Phil Jeffries putting a promotion on. But the two standout fights are obviously John Lewis Dickinson against Courtney Fry, and I think John Lewis will certainly have no trouble. I think it'll be a good warm-up fight for bigger days ahead for John Lewis. It's just going to be nice to see him getting back in the ring, you know, after the traumatic defeat that he suffered at the arena. He looks fit, he looks conditioned, and you know the word coming from the gym is that the sparring's been fantastic. So, you know, I genuinely think that you know, John Lewis won't have any troubles at the weekend, and you know, his fans are going to go home happy.
Well, before the Over Mackenzie fight, John was looking very solid in his title defences and everything, and a lot of the word that's been going around the region is like his head wasn't in the right place for the Mackenzie fight.
I can't speak for whether John's head was in the right place for that. I just think that the promoters have a responsibility sometimes to protect the boxers, you know, for the better of their career. And I get the feeling that the way that John Lewis was matched up was irresponsible for that particular show. I think that you know, he was, you know, you draw the line at accusing a promoter of setting a fighter up, but I just think it was always going to be a hard fight. You know, I've spoken to big promoters and little promoters about this over the last few months, and it was just an awkward fight for John Lewis to have. I'm all for having fights where it's you know, a 50-50 fight, or a fight which, you know, John Lewis had an opportunity to go in and do what we know John can do. But I just think it was a tough fight to go into, and you know, only John knows, you know, and his trainer and his manager knows, you know, why he lost that fight. But I'm sure they've worked hard to put it right, and I'm sure we'll see the real John Lewis Dickinson in the ring at the weekend. And
it's a decent opponent that he's taken on for his comeback. I mean, Courtney Fry, I think last time out he actually fought Roy Jones Jr., didn't he, in July?
Yeah, it's funny, we're just talking about Roy Jones Jr. because obviously on the promotional circuit we put on a lot of speakers. And we've had Roy up here once before in the North East, and we're talking about bringing him back next year. But yeah, that was Courtney's one of Courtney's last opponents, and you know, it's always difficult to judge people. You know, when you look at you know, fights on paper, they're different to what actually happens in the ring. You know, and sometimes you know, a win in the win column doesn't quite do it justice, you know. Yeah. But it's going to be an interesting fight. I think, as I say, it'll be a good chance for him to warm up and for him to, you know, to get back into the ring and get a feel for it, and to remind his fans that he's still here and still means business. And I think 2015 is going to be an exciting year for John Lewis Dickinson.
Brilliant. And you mentioned one other fight that stands out for you?
It's the Tyne Wear derby, you know, and obviously we don't like football connotations in the boxing circle, but I can't get away from it because obviously I'm a football fan. But yeah, I mean, two fantastic fighters, two exciting fighters in Lee Mould and Craig Dixon. I'm obviously close to both camps. I've worked with Mal Gates and his lads over the last couple of years, and obviously worked with Ronnie Rowe and Lewis Pendleton fighting chance over the last year and a bit. So it's a hard one to call. They're both very, very durable fighters, both technically gifted, both, you know, got a great opportunity to go on to bigger things. But this fight is a defining moment for both of their careers. It's not a situation where whoever loses is going to find themselves out on the rear and scratching their heads and thinking, where do I go from here? But it's about local pride, and it's about making that next step. And I think that I think that I've seen plus points and negative points in both fighters over the years. But it's like most people you will find, I think, that you're speaking to, they will simply sit on the fence with this bomb, and it's nothing to do with having divided loyalties. It's because you cannot really pull them apart. And I've seen them both have some fantastic shows and some fantastic fights. I just think, you know, we're looking for an exciting fight. I'd love to see it go the distance and go to points. I think that's what will probably happen. And then it's, you know, at least it's not our responsibility to pick the winner.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've got Dixon, very good long range on the outside. Lee obviously can also box, but he's very good when he gets on the inside. He's very strong, very powerful, and it's one of those where over 6 rounds you might have maybe swayed towards Dixon because of the outside boxing, but 10 rounds is a long time.
I think they
can be slightly off here.
I think both of these fighters could probably do 15 rounds. They're both that fit.
Yeah.
You know, they've both got great trainers, and they can both go the distance. There's no issues with that. I think, you know, if you were going to be, you know, looking at, you know, who can knock somebody out, I think we know in recent times, Lee Mould has certainly proved he can do that. We just have to think back to the Stadium of Light when he fought John Watson and caught him with a peach of a shot, and obviously John Watson was out for the count. So you look at that and you think, Lee's got that in his armoury. Craig hasn't had a knockout, but I know for a fact he's got it in his armoury. So that's what makes it such an interesting fight. It could be, could be very much like a game of chess. It could be, could be touch and go. They might be feeling each other out for those first couple of rounds. Yeah. But I genuinely like to think that it's going to be a fight which everybody's talking about, a bit like Buchanan and McClumper Johnson on the Stadium of Light show a couple of years ago.
Which that was a really, really well matched fight. Speaking of Buchanan, he's obviously making his not so much a comeback, but he's had a few fights scheduled and fell through. So it's time to get him back in the ring.
And I mean, I think as a promoter, I'm a little bit responsible for that as well. There's obviously been a few political situations in the local area over the last 12 months, which has meant that Andrew hasn't been available to go on to my show. And it has been difficult. We're hoping that 2015 maybe sees a change in that situation, because there's no doubt about it. Andrew's one of the most gifted boxers in the North East. He's very, very talented, and he'll go a long way, and he was out for such a long time. But then for him to make such a comeback, as he did on our shows, and come back in such style is great to see. And I'm pleased to see him back in the ring. I'll be at ringside analysing for the local TV company Maiden Tyne and Weir at the weekend, and I'll certainly be cheering Andrew on and hoping that he comes back in style.
And you've also got Mr. Clausel's two fighters on there, Bazzy Razak and Lewis Scott.
Both exciting fighters, obviously met up with Mark since the last interview with yourselves, and no hard feelings between me and Mark. It's great to see that we've just taken off where we really did leave off. People forget that Mark and I have been friends for a long time. Before boxing came into the equation. So it wasn't so much a case of peace talks. It was just a case of let's stop being silly and just shaking hands. And I think you probably had a little bit to do with that with what you said to me and probably what you said to Mark. So it's just been good to speak to him. He says both lads are looking in good shape. I've obviously seen Baz and Lewis today. And again,
smart as well.
Both smart as a dog. They look smarter than some of the promoters, but it's good. I mean, that's the kind of image that Mark's fighters like to portray. They're smart inside the ring and smart outside the ring, and that's a good thing for North East boxing. There's nothing wrong with sticking a suit on and looking the part. So it's an exciting bill. A very exciting bill. I think Fighting Chance and Dennis Hobson should be proud of themselves for getting this show on and putting it on. And I think the boxing fans will be in for a treat. But look, let's not forget obviously Phil's show as well at the weekend. Coming quickly on the feet of it and on the toes of it. On Sunday afternoon. And Glenn Foot's comeback is equally as exciting. I think that's going to be a cracking day out, and it's just nice as a promoter to be able to go to both shows and not really have to worry about paying people and checking the invoices off and any last minute problems we're waiting at. You're just hoping that it's just going to be a good weekend of boxing. I'm thoroughly looking forward to it.
Well, fantastic, Steve. I shall see you there.
Yeah.
Until then, have a good time.
Thanks very much, Phil.